Hi, welcome to What the Flick. We are deep in the Star Wars prequels. We did this for you. We made this giant sacrifice of rewatching the Star Wars prequels for all of you guys. I'm Christy, that's Lonzo, that's Ben, that is Matt. Matt will describe to us Star Wars, Episode II - Attack of the Clones.
Send in the clowns.
Take it away, Matt Atchity.
Yeah, big sacrifice here, right? 6 hours of Star Wars movies, come on.
6+.
TCM is showing all the Christmas carols this week, and I'm missing them for this bullshit. So yes, it's a sacrifice.
All right, so Attack of the Clones finds us a few years after the events of Phantom Menace. Anakin has turned into a big kid. Now it looks like Hayden Christensen. He's on his way to being a full-fledged Jedi. He's not quite there yet, but he and Obi-Wan Kenobi are helping foil a plot against what may or may not be an assassination plot against Padme, former queen of Naboo. And so Anakin ends up having to protect her, and they fall in love, which is absolutely forbidden. And then more shit happens. Let's watch a clip.
As my first act, I will create a grand army of the Republic to counter the increasing threats of the separatists.
Hasn't been a full-scale war since the formation of the Republic.
You must join me, Obi-Wan, and together we will destroy the Sith.
The dark side clouds everything. In grave danger you are.
You know, this one is not the mess that Phantom Menace is, right? This one you start...
It's a new kind.
It's a new kind. The biggest gaping wound in this movie is the love story, and the dialogue in the love story
is Hayden Christensen, period. I'm sorry. He's done other films well, but in 2 and 3, he's awful.
He gets better in 3.
He is awful, and Portman's not very good in this one either. And I think that this is another example of what happens when you cast some actors, and again, it's the veterans here that I think do okay.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor is fine in this.
Sure.
Ian McDiarmid is fine in this. You know, those guys can work without any direction and kind of just do their own thing. But poor Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, whose story has to carry most of the emotional arc of this movie, are given very little direction. And even if they are giving direction, when have we seen a love story work out of George Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, Anakin Skywalker is written as a kind of a big whiny baby. And so I think it would be tricky for an actor to play those notes of like, they don't trust me yet, I'm right. And boy, does Christensen not know how to get those notes right. So he is pretty much just kind of, it's like he drew petulant out of the deck, and that was all we get.
He stuck with that. But also, then when he has to try to be romantic, right, you have the scene where they're sitting in the meadow, pitching woo in the meadow. It's like something out of a feminine hygiene commercial. It's all like sun-dappled and glossy and like cringe-inducing.
And some of his lines are laughable, right? Like Anakin's, his overtures of love are so laughably awful. And as a nerd who has watched the Clone Wars show, the dialogue that he has in reference that is similar to some of that is so much better. It's so much better written.
In the
Clone Wars cartoon, the kids cartoon. This movie suffers from a lot of the same problems that the first one suffers from, except that I think that the action gets a little bit better. The storyline is they're tilting towards war, and there's a little bit of a mystery here that Obi-Wan is investigating, and that's kind of interesting. It's not great, and you're still not really ever getting any good answers.
What's he investigating? Oh, the
clone army.
The what do you call it?
Right, like
Jango
the
Fett.
bounty hunter.
Right,
The origin of Boba Fett.
Right.
That's kind of vaguely interesting.
Yeah, and I will say, just a cool little shout out for movie trivia buffs. The actor who's now just flew right out of my head, who plays Jango Fett.
Temuera Morrison.
Temuera Morrison, thank you. Is the star of the New Zealand epic film Once for Warriors, and Rena Owen, who plays his wife in that film, is Taun We, the real tall, creepy alien on these clone planets. So,
but you all knew that. If you're watching,
you probably knew that.
You knew that before we did. Yes.
This still suffers from the same thing that they all suffer from, which is this. I think what seems to be a deliberate undermining of their own action scenes with very inappropriately dumb, funny buddy movie jargon.
Right,
back
you
and
hate
forth.
that when it's forced in.
And it's consistently forced.
Right.
in. So
Obi-Wan
that-
gets a
so like
lot
we're
of it.
supposed to think you really might die, right? Obi-Wan has so much of it. Everything Ewan McGregor says, you're like, well, you're not really in danger because you wouldn't say that.
You're
if you were
cocking
really
an
right.
eyebrow all the
Right.
time.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, good one.
Right. I totally agree with you. Like there's that early on chase scene where they're in that yellow hot rod looking
Yes.
speeder.
Yeah.
Right. And
The
there's
Blade
this
Runner
banter
scene,
like, oh,
yes.
it took too long. I had to find the right. And there's no chemistry there. There's no. It's just forced and awful. And now that being said, you get to some scenes where, like, okay, when you get to finally see Yoda throw down, like that's kind of cool.
I was saying, Yoda versus Count Dooku, worth the price of admission.
Right. That's you get some good scenes in here. You know, you get to see. You know, you never
Was
get
Yoda
a
versus
sense.
Count Dooku in this one?
Yes.
Yeah, that was this one. You know, and then when Obi-Wan goes up against Jango Fett, like that's a real well-staged fight scene with a guy who could hold his own against a Jedi. That's kind of cool. But
I
all of
liked
the
how
other,
quickly that was over. Like I'm
Right.
not trying to be funny. Like I thought that actually was dramatically effective. Like you're set for this big thing, and then you're like, oh, his head's off. Like you know.
no, you're thinking of the thinking of the end of that. I'm talking about
okay.
the early
I
one.
meant the early. I meant when
Right.
they're all captured in that part.
Oh no, I'm talking about the one earlier on when they're on
Right.
the
Yeah, that was
the
fun.
clone planet. Right.
That's when he looked like Ultraman, right?
Yeah, that's when he looked like Ultraman.
Yes, and then
It's
we
good
have
to see Ultraman back. By the way. Yeah.
But this also has the big, the thing that made Phantom Menace so detached emotionally in terms of the thrills or the stakes. Like it's just so glossy. Like all the big stuff with the clone armies.
Right.
And then like there's like the swirling dust. It makes it hard to see who's doing what to whom.
Right.
And if the first movie gives us the chariot race from Ben-Hur, now we get the gladiatorial matches from Spartacus.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And you know, when you get to the end, like as we're supposed to be following Anakin down this dark path, like it's not really ever earned, right? Like he freaks out and kills all those sand people. He then, you know, you see him, you know, he has that argument in the one ship with Obi-Wan when Padme falls out of the ship and he wants to turn around and go back. And it's just not earned, right?
That's
You
right.
see
No,
what
yeah.
they're trying to write, but it's you know, this is the movie that, again, is same as the prequel. You see where Lucas is failing as a writer. And especially, you know, what's particularly hard about this is you can ignore it in Star Wars. You can ignore it in Episode 4, but then you get Lawrence Kasdan coming in and writing the dialogue and rewriting the script in Empire. And, you know, the dialogue, it gets a little goofy sometimes in Return of the Jedi, but it's not terrible. So we ended on better dialogue than we started with. And now we've taken this huge step backwards, right? And these love scenes are fucking awful.
I don't think it's just the writing. I mean, I think you're right, but I think it's also the directing because, I mean, again, first of all, there are a couple of scenes that are separated by wipes that are 3 seconds long. They're just, you see him climbing up.
Right.
And so when he comes out and kills the sand people and they refuse to show us him killing the sand children, which would be effective, right? That would. I mean, if
And that'll come up again later.
right. But if you're trying to, but at least then we saw in the third one we see that those kids are there and that they look to him for help, and then we know what he's going to do. So that still delivered
Right.
some emotional
Sure.
punch. Here, it's only when he tells whatever her name is later
Padme.
that Padme later that he killed them. That it. So we don't, and then when he comes out of the thing and he chops their heads off, like then we get this dumb Saturday morning TV wipe, and you're like, I'm supposed to believe that was in the Star Wars trilogy. That's a seminal moment, right?
Right.
Where his anger takes over and he kills innocents or vaguely innocents.
This is also where we start getting into that annoying kind of Muppet Babies territory where everybody has always known everybody all along.
Yeah.
We're now supposed to believe that Uncle Owen met C-3PO and R2-D2 years earlier and then completely has no memory of them whatsoever when he buys them off the Jawas in Episode 4.
Well, he's standing over there.
I call bullshit, but they come to his house, all right?
No,
He
no,
sees
I-
them
I-
up close.
no,
It's
I
not the
agree.
droids he's looking for.
And also the aunt. But
That's
All
later.
those droids look the
but his
same.
aunt would have said, I think those
Yeah, that's just shit like
But
that.
there is a line about the droids having their memory wiped, so at least they wouldn't know.
Right, yeah, okay, which is already dicey.
comes
but,
up later.
But the humans would know.
Right.
Well,
humans haven't had their own.
You know, it's the fan service, right? Like all this fan service, these little notes get put in there to try and make the fans feel better, and it all takes away with energy that should have been put towards making the script better. But you know, again, with this second film, you're seeing all of the problems stem from the same problems in the first one, is that nobody will tell George Lucas no.
Right.
Yes.
He's in
Right.
his little bubble.
Right, and if he was producing and you had some other directors and some other writers, we'd have a whole different ball game.
My last point on this will be, I want to put it in some political context. This is going to get better numbers from all of this, but this is exactly, The Phantom Menace is Donald Trump, and Attack of the Clones is Ted Cruz. And only because someone has outflanked Ted Cruz on the right does somehow Ted Cruz seem like a palpable
More logical.
And that's the only reason that this movie isn't also a 0, is that the other 0, I can't go below 0 on The Phantom Menace.
So what's your number then on Attack of the Clones?
3.4. It's terrible.
All right, Matt.
What did I give it? 5?
You gave it a 4.5.
4.5.
I also say 4.5.
I gave it a 4.5 also, didn't I?
No.
No?
Matt gave it 5.5.
You get
sorry.
5.
Yeah,
5.5.
I was going to say.
All right, our average is 4.5. And where is it?
It's in the 60s, 67%.
So we're creeping toward the dark side here.
I'm
Our
sorry,
numbers are going up.
65%.
65%, yeah. So we'll do episode 3 as well, and maybe we'll like that one. Fingers crossed. Bye.